It's like your Super Bowl for the year. You do it big once and you're done.
Absolutely. Yeah, the great opportunity, Jamie. Don't mess this one up. You'll be good for a year as long as you really score on that day.
Our tradition is that we have to make it a little bit better than the year before. Otherwise, I'm in the doghouse for a couple of weeks.
Singing Telegram on a hot air balloon ride. There you go. Welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer here with my good friends Christopher McCluskey and Jamie Slingerland. Michael and Greavy, we miss you. Know that you are working hard today on your house project, but you are here in spirit. We are guys who are crazy about our wives. We love our kids, and we want to kill it in business. And the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast is that safe place to talk about those important domains of our lives. And let's face it, sometimes there are challenges when you're trying to live this extraordinary life, but we strive to do just that. And today, as this launches in the theme of the Love Month and Valentine's Day quickly approaching, let's be honest, sometimes this Hallmark holiday, if you will, is a tough one for guys, right? Sometimes we feel like, oh, maybe you can identify here. Maybe you're one of those guys that you feel guilty because you know you should have been doing some stuff pretty regularly, and so you just go all out this time and you figure that'll do it, right? Or maybe you push back on this commercialized holiday because you're like, you know what, we're pretty regular with a lot of the stuff we do. And so how do you blend all of that? That's what I want to talk about today. And as we talk about, we are crazy about our wives. We want to share some crazy love examples on this podcast today. So Chris, kick us off. Talk about how you approach this Valentine's holiday in your family.
Well, I like that you put out those two extremes there, Chris, right up front, because I do think that's a tendency for awful lot of us guys, is that either we will go really ridiculously all out, maybe trying to make up for some past neglect or whatever, and we're buying the huge stuffed whatever animal that we're going to have, and it's got a box of chocolates, and then you're coming in with all this junk like nobody really needs it, but you're trying to do the Disneyland dad thing here or something with your marriage. Or on the other side, it's like, oh man, I'm not going to get suckered in by this, holiday that was created by the card companies. So we do nothing. And you wind up, maybe your wife says something, maybe she doesn't say something, but the message that she's interpreting is you don't even care. You didn't even think about such a thing. I think there's a big middle ground. I think there's a really big opportunity for men who are crazy about their wives to be able to take Valentine's Day as a special day of celebration of how crazy they are about her 365 days a year, and just make a very memorable deposit into her love bank that says, yes, of course I'm crazy about you. I celebrate you. I'm so glad I'm with you for this life. So in our family, we do celebrate Valentine's Day, and it's not just my love for Rachel, it's my love for what my love for Rachel resulted in, which is all these kids. So the kids all get to participate in me bringing, there's always a box of Turtles chocolates. That's Rachel's favorite kind of candy. So there's always that. But each of the kids have always gotten little tiny sampler boxes of chocolates for themselves as well. I saw that modeled in my home growing up. Dad always brought a double-decker box of chocolates for my mom and for all of we kids. And it was romantic, but it wasn't mushy romantic. It was like fun, goofy, celebratory. Like, will you be my Valentine? And we each had to say yes before we get our box. And it just made us all feel very aware of the love that we knew Dad had for Mom. And I think in my family, my kids would all say that the awareness they have of the love that I have for Mommy and Mommy has for me. But there's no greater place than for kids to be than kind of wrapped up in that love of their parents and getting to have it spill out all over them as well, that they're caught up in the celebration.
I love that example, Chris. That's a great way to put it too, that there's love just spilling out because it starts with your wife and it envelops your kids and it draws them into this great example that you just described with the chocolate in the boxes and just approaching each one. Will you be my Valentine? I just love that, the visual that I have in my mind as you're around the table there And it really invites this discussion, because you touched on this too, that we're filling the love bank, and we want that to spill out, to overflow. And I don't think it's going to happen if you just do it once a year, right? You've got to continually invest in that love bank, or those love languages, let's call it, too. And so, Jamie, I want to pivot to you, because let's talk about some of these practical examples of how maybe each of us, or examples in the greater EFM community, that we examine our wives' love languages and we find ways to make those regular deposits into these love bank accounts, if you will. So just going through those kind of love languages as a concept of crazy love examples here. Jamie, how do you guys you and Ruthie approach time as the ability to show love for one another?
Quality time is definitely Ruthie's biggest love language, and doing something with her, it's less about where we go and what we do and the fact that we're together and there's not kids. I think that's the culture of our dates. I was telling you guys before we jumped on here, our last couple dates that we did was not very romantic, in the sense of it wasn't a white tablecloth or a violin, but we were simply together. And Ruthie got to pick where we were going to go. And one of the dates was actually, this is an amazing tip for any guy listening that wants to save some money. Sometimes what your wife wants to do doesn't cost anything. They just want to leave and go to the library or go someplace where they can have quiet. Ruthie is always with the kids, homeschooling. A lot of times she doesn't want to go someplace crowded with a lot of people. And so we went to Five Guys, and all she wanted was Cajun French fries. One little thing that I've learned about Ruthie is that the thought is the most important thing, because I used to work at my family's Christian bookstore. And one thing that I realized is the nicest, biggest card, even if you open it up and it played like a little music or whatever, is that it was more about what I wrote on the card than about what the card said. And I'd spend a lot of time looking at the cards at the bookstore to figure out what message resonated with what I felt the most. And then it was wah, wah, wah when I just signed I love you, babe, at the bottom, because she wanted to know what I said, not what some Hallmark card copywriter guy said, who probably was single anyway, just writing a card for somebody else. So probably the biggest gift I could get her would be to write a handwritten note that was from the bottom of my heart. And that takes a little bit to get in touch with that for me. So,
well, it's a good example, Jamie, that a lot of times, guys, we approach these dates as they have to be this super private, over the top dinner with, like you said, white tablecloths and violins, but it can be as simple as running somewhere just to have some quiet together, to have some time together. Because that's really the gift there, is the time together. And I love how we're all trying to make more of that time as a regular part of our own marriages. Chris, I see, and you've shared so many times on this podcast, just the regular dates that you and Rachel go on, and how that starts in the driveway as you're going out that dirt road. I can picture this because I've been to your place.
Yeah.
But just that windshield time that you get, and the specialness of that time together, the conversation that you have. I'm thinking of another example too. We talk a lot about time and time deposits. Jason Pearl, a guy in our group here, last year he was like, boy, I really feel convicted about, spending time and dates and all this stuff with my wife. I'm going to do it at least once a quarter. And boy, he just blew the socks off of that type of a goal, and was, I think, regularly dating his wife more than a couple times a month. So that's just really kind of the goal that we're after here, is making those regular commitments. And it's going to require a little bit of energy to line up a babysitter. Maybe the wife is the one to do that. Make some plans, make a reservation. Yep. But it's so, so important, especially if your wife values that time together. The next example would be acts of service. Acts of service as a way to be crazy about these love examples with your wife. Jamie, I want to relate this to pairing your time and acts of service, because you and Ruthie have done that regularly, but you were sharing before about acts of service in a way that a lot of guys might raise their eyebrows and go, there's no way I could spend that much time alone with the kids. But what's your example here?
We started this podcast because we found ourselves going to all these conferences with the blessing of our wife. I think having that blessing where you know that your partner cares about your hopes and your dreams And you really feel that when you leave. So we were in San Diego and we felt that. Last year when Ruthie shared with me, there was this particular conference that she wanted to go to with two of our mutual friends. She looked up and my answer just spilled out of me. Of course, you need to go and I need to support you. I'm going to support you on this conference. How can I help you book your travel arrangements? And so I was the travel agent for her conference that she went on. And then my wife was not getting any text from me telling her about any of the problems that I was having with the children or any of the problems at home. I wasn't allowed to really have any problems myself either, because this is what we do at EFM, that we invest in our spouse. So she was able to go to this conference, enjoy it. And then when she called to check in on me, I was really curious about how it was going for her. Who she was meeting with? What about the meals and the arrangement at the Airbnb that she had? And we got to share just a sweet fellowship, talking about all just the excitement around the event. That it would have been a really possibility that I could have robbed her of some of that joy just by uploading all of my pain and suffering or all the stuff that I was dealing with holding down the fort. So our wives have so many passions and hopes and dreams and desires within them. And I feel like as men, not only do we need to encourage them, but maybe we need to take steps to make those things happen.
Jamie, I 100% agree, as you know. And I love that you underscored that not only are you taking over control of the home and I'll watch the kids and don't worry about a thing here, but that when you connect with her by text or a phone call, or if you guys, I don't know if you Skype each other or something at night sometimes, but that the focus, even while she's away, is still on her. I think sometimes guys, if they're honest with themselves, if they do step up and do some things like this, they want to be sure that the wife is noticing how much they're sacrificing. So they get this kind of little martyr thing going on. Like, oh, it's okay, honey. I'm glad you can be there. It's been a really rough day, but I'm glad. Like, oh man, you don't want to do that. Do not rob the joy of the gift by trying to turn some attention on yourself for what an amazing husband you are for giving the gift. I'm just coming off of Rachel having had to leave. Unfortunately, it wasn't for something that she was terribly excited about doing. It was something that she needed to do. Her family, 2 members of the family, were going in for surgery, ironically, on exactly the same day, 2 different hospitals, and they were both serious surgeries, both going under, both going to have a protracted recovery period afterwards, and they live in Ohio. So this was, down to the St. Louis airport, park the car, leave it there, and fly off. And so we scheduled for her to be gone 8 days. Wow, that's a long time to be gone. Absolutely went with my blessing. We paid for everything, made sure that they got groceries bought when she got there, and take care of everything that I can take care of, since we all can't go, but at least I can make sure she's there. And then throughout that time, any interactions were, well, how did the surgery go? Or how are they recovering? Or what else do you need? Or are you getting some time for yourself? And what else could make this a memorable time for you? Any important conversations you guys could have? Just keeping the attention on her. She's there. She can't come back here. I don't want her thinking about back here. I don't want her feeling guilty for being out there. Turned out at the end that her flight got canceled. They had a snowstorm come in. It's another day. I think it would have been very easy to say, oh man, I've been counting the minutes until you're back here. No way. No, hey, don't worry about it. I'll take care of getting you rescheduled for another flight. You just be there. We'll make this thing work. I actually not only got her a flight the next day, but it got delayed and she wound up getting in around midnight or so. I'm not patting myself on the back as a guy now, telling all you other guys, hey, do like I did. I'm just saying, sticking with the spirit of the gift of an act of service like that for your wife. I got in the car and drove down to the airport to pick her up at midnight. Was her car there? Yes. Do I want her coming home at midnight and taking a cab to get to her car, to find the hotel and check? No, I don't. So I go down and I pick her up, and we both went back and got her car the next day and drove home separately, but spent the night in the hotel room just enjoying, hey, it's just good that you're back, so tell me all about it. Make sure that your acts of service are pure, are something that your wife can really enjoy and isn't made to kind of sideways feel guilty for enjoying. Lavish upon her.
McCluskey, I love what you're saying. And what I'm hearing is your wife is not only your partner, but she's your friend. That's truly service when you're thinking about the other person and not yourself. So, I mean, I would tell the guy that has that tendency to be the martyr, do the opposite. Niemeyer, you booked a trip as a travel agent for your wife to go to Portugal with one of her best friends. I mean, I would like my wife, if she's listening, to do that for me. So
Yeah, you got to talk about that though, Chris. You got to plug that in here. That's a beautiful example.
Yeah, well, I guess that blends a little bit of like the time acts of service, but it was more, the example was notes and words of encouragement. So context here, right? Alicia, a couple of years ago, took this amazing trip to Portugal. Actually, it started out as like a weekend getaway to the wine country, ended up being 9 days overseas because she's a 7. That's just what she does, right? But gave her the blessing, of course, to do that. And was excited because, frankly, the previous 8 years, she'd either been pregnant or nursing a baby. I mean, that was just her reality. So getting away for any extended period of time, alone or with girlfriends, was just not possible. And so this was kind of like, you know what, we're pretty much sure we're done with 4 kids. And this was just after she could leave, nursing. So super excited. Well, words of encouragement and notes and just kind of that combination is a big thing for Alicia. And so we've done this periodically, when we travel, we'll leave little notes, little letters in each other's suitcases or whatever. Well, this time, and again, we didn't know this until day 1 of the trip, but the night before, she's kind of finished packing, the kids and I are downstairs, and we have crayons out and colored pencils and all this kind of fun paper, and we made, I think it was about 15 different little notes, little just love notes, hey, mommy, we missed you, we're doing this today, whatever it was. Carried that up there secretly with a bunch of chocolates and just stuffed all these notes in different pockets of all the clothes that she had brought for the trip. And so it was just a fun, the kids are all thinking like, we're surprising mommy with like little secrets. And so sure enough, day 1, day 2, she's taking pictures, sending them back to us like, oh, look what I found in my pocket, and she's all excited. Well, start of day 1, one of her first messages to us was, hey, go check in this drawer. Well, come to find out, she was gone for 9 days. She had left 9 different large envelopes that said open on this day. So open on day 1, day 2, and et cetera. Every single one of those envelopes had a little note to each one of us. So me and each of the 4 little kids, and she loves stationery and beautiful things. And so she had just created these little tiny notes expressing her love, how she missed us, all that. So it's just this amazing, like the bar was set high from that trip onward, right? But just to get and receive and send all these notes of encouragement while each other are away, blessing one another while there's this big trip taking place. It's a big example, but it's one that we're trying to continue to live out. And the kids see that now. They'll just leave random notes across the house just for us to find, which is pretty fun.
There cannot be a guy listening right now who's not smiling. Whether they do this stuff or whether they're feeling a little bit guilty or whether they're just excited because the bar is being raised for them, there's not a guy listening who's worth his salt who's not smiling, because that is beautiful. It's a beautiful picture of love lived out in a family and celebrated by 2 parents who are wise enough to know the importance of celebrating the love that they have for each other and the incredible blessing that family is. That's what Valentine's Day is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a day of celebrating love. So we start with romantic love, but it's love for the kids. It's love for family. It's love for all persons. I love that when we were kids, at least, we exchanged Valentine's cards with all of our friends in our classes and stuff. Valentine's Day is a good day to just remember that, hey, every day we want to be giving expressions of love and genuine expressions of love.
That's great, Chris. Another great expression too, right, is affection. And I think a lot of times, again, back to this Valentine's example, some guys think, well, we're going to, really spice it up tonight or whatever that kind of expression of love might be. But let's talk about this, just these times of affection, some healthy PDA, if you will, in front of our kids in the home. I think we all can agree that these kinds of daily affections, those long hugs, right, in the kitchen, some of those great kisses that the kids go, oh, but they're still looking up at and admiring that we're taking the initiative do that is great. What do you guys do when it comes to affection and how your kids even react in that?
You're the master, McCluskey. This one's you, man.
Well, if I have any mastery, it's only because I grew up with a dad who was very demonstrative in great ways with his love for my mom. He was a kitchen hugger. My dad was always just wrapping my mom up in his big arms. He's 6'2", and she was, I don't know what mom is, 5'5", 5'6", but she wasn't teeny tiny, but he would just wrap her up, if she was standing at the stove or at the kitchen. He wasn't grabby, he was loving, he was cuddly, and he'd go up and spat her on the butt, and then she'd turn around and he'd give her a kiss. And boy, the greatest place in the world to be for us three kids, if mommy and daddy were in a kitchen hug, was scrambling in and like squeezing in between their legs or getting in on that hug there somewhere. Tangibly, we were feeling the awareness of being wrapped up in their love for each other. Dad was always one to romance mom. Certainly Valentine's gifts, and we all got those. With those kinds of little, like the smooches that, I'm not talking making out, but I'm talking like getting up by your ear and going, moo, 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 moo. You know how that makes you like, you get goosebumpy and your hair raises up, but it's fun, it's romantic, and it is public. But kids draw on that. They drink that kind of thing in. And I grieve when I'm around families that instead experienced a lot of the opposite, just an absence of physical contact. Hands held, hair tousled, back scratched, feet rubbed, shoulders rubbed. It didn't even have to be quite that affectionate, but cuddling on the couch or anything, when that's not there, our physical bodies, because we are physical beings, we're a spirit encased in a physical body, our physical bodies want touch. They want connection, and it's a beautiful way, without it having to be sexualized all the time in public, but to demonstrate and express love for the kids, for mommy, on a regular, very healthy basis. And of course, then when you do get into the bedroom or on those date nights or making out in the car, it spills over there, but there's not a disconnect. It's not like, oh, well, I guess he must be horny, he must want something. No, it's just the natural further expression of physical displays of love all the time.
I love it. And who listening doesn't want that?
Right?
If we go and look up kitchen hugger, is that a term that you actually came up with? Kitchen hugger?
Probably.
Like your dad's picture is in the dictionary if you look up kitchen hugger. But I think what a blessing for any child to be raised in a family where just on the outward you can see that mommy and daddy are crazy about each other, and they don't just do it by acts of service, by taking out the garbage or doing these sort of routine things. There's actual physical manifestations. I'm just hearing you as a child talk about how it affected you as a kid, seeing your dad treat your mommy like that. So it's not just about our wives, it's about our children as well. So that's pretty inspiring to me to hear.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. I love that. We'll say hashtag kitchen hugger, from now on as you're putting posts on. I'm a kitchen hugger. But you're absolutely right. Kids desire to see that. They want to know that they live in a home, in a relationship where mommy and daddy love each other. They're crazy about one another. They see that example on a regular basis. So good for you for sharing that, for demonstrating that. And that last act or example of love, Chris, you referenced earlier, but gifts and the way that you even approach Valentine's Day, again, not just as a one-time thing, because I've seen you give all kinds of gifts throughout the year to both Rachel and your children, but just how important those little items can be, especially if that's a love language of theirs. But to just give and to demonstrate that giving nature of who you are through gifts. So what about you? When it comes to this month, the month of love, Valentine's Day, wherever you are on that spectrum of whether you maybe feel a little guilty because you haven't put in enough effort in these areas and you need to go big, maybe you're pushing against the commercialism of it all. But like Chris McCluskey said, there's a big middle ground here where you can celebrate this time to emphasize your love and the types of different loves that you can show to your wife, even to your kids as well. But then to be mindful of the other 364 days of the year where you could be doing the same thing on a regular basis, depositing into that love account. So truly sit with this question: where can you make the biggest impact to express love to your wife? Sit with that, then go do it.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.